really used food as an answer to a lot of things that food probably wasn't supposed to be answers for. Like, other people might be alcoholics and other people use drugs, but I think I've always used food as my comfort, my answer, the way to feel better about stuff, and it never really, like alcoholics say, drinking doesn't make you feel better, but being drunk sort of feels good for a little while. Well, being full never felt very good to me, but I went with that for a long time. And when I talk about a long time, I mean, I think the first memory I have of truly not being okay inside my body, and I think that it started well before that, but I was on the swim team. And when I was 6 years old, I remember putting on my Speedo, and I can remember that my body was skin and bone. I remember what I looked like, but I always had a little belly. And I'd walk out from the locker room, and as I would get to the door, I would go and walk slower, because it's hard to hold that like that while you walk and not breathe. And I'm like, looking at it now, I'm like, God, 6 years old. My son is 5, my daughter's almost 2. Like, God, we're already getting there. And I really don't want this for them. By the time I got to high school, I'd seen all the documentaries and the, movie of the weeks about the girls who were throwing up and, the distorted body image. And I was never sexually abused, which is pretty common for people with this kind of a situation. I have 2 parents who love me very much, and yet there was just enough chaos in my life that I picked up on and owned for myself that I decided that I just wasn't good enough, and I just wasn't worthy of eating whatever I wanted in moderate portions, and for whatever reason, everything just always seemed a little bit out of whack. So I used food as this really great substitute for whatever I felt like I was missing. And all I know right now is that I've been through a ton of therapy. I do everything that I can to not diet, to not deprive myself, but to not go overboard. And yet it always is still a struggle. Like, it's always something. Like, if I gain weight, I hate myself. If I lose weight, I hate myself a little bit less, but I always want to push the envelope a little bit farther. I wrote a blog post about this week, where a couple months ago, I thought, I wonder what 140 would look like on the scale. Like, I'd really like to know what that looks like. And I used to talk about it with my husband a lot. Like, what does 140 feel like? And he's like, you look great. What's your problem? I don't know. Like, whatever. So I do all this running. I started to do all this different stuff and sort of change up the routine a little bit. And there's only a scale at my mom's house. There isn't one at home. So I go to my mom's house, and it said like 143. And I was like, oh my God. Then the next time I was up there, it said 139. And instead of like, I had always said, if I ever get to 140, I'm going to have a party. Well, it got to 139, and I was like, but what would 135 look like? What would 120 be like? And my husband's like, emaciated and like completely weird. He's like, what's going on? So I just want to share all of that with you. I have really no good answers about what to say, other than that I have a feeling that this is probably something that we all share in some way. I assume that I'm not just the craziest one in this room, although maybe that's true. So I feel like as women in particular, I know that this is a challenge, but I've been to enough Overeaters Anonymous meetings to know that it actually isn't entirely unique to women. In fact, it's not unique to women very much at all, as much as we think so. But what I do know is that for me as a mother, as an aunt, as a role model, and as a person in the community, I can affect the way that I talk about myself, the way that I talk to my child, particularly my daughter, my niece, my family, and the way that I talk to myself in order to change this, in order to make myself feel better and to kind of reduce some of the obsession, some of the horror and the shame and the guilt that can go below. So Lauren is one of our Mount Diablo moms, and I met her a couple of months ago at a club night, right in this very room. We were listening to a guy talk about disaster preparedness, and he was telling us basically that you can't have enough canned food in the garage and all this, and Lauren and I were like, oh my God. He listed all the horrible things that could happen to East Bay residents because of where we live, be it earthquakes or proximity to gas to oil refineries, and I was like, I had no idea. So Lauren and I were sitting there horrified, and it turns out that we live almost right next door to each other, which is totally awesome. So when we started talking about Fun Fabulous Fear, she mentioned to me that she's a marriage family therapist, and if we were looking for guest speakers, she would like to share some of her thoughts with our group. And so she's a licensed marriage family therapist. She specializes in disordered eating and weight loss. She was a clinic director for a weight loss camp for adolescents. I have some notes here. And she also has extensive experience working with foster families. So I've already read her presentation. I haven't heard what she has to say, but I can tell you that this is going to be one that I'm going to be taking notes. So I hope you enjoy it. So here's Lauren.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for lending me your ears. I know that we had a great workout, and so I'm not going to belabor this or take so much of your time, but I'm used to running process groups, which are like circular format, where a lot of people are talking, not just me. So I'm hoping this can be a discussion. You'll get a lot more from one another than you will just from me. So please stop me at any time. I don't care if you go beyond this slide, really. I want to hear what you all have to say. But first, entertain me and do the little project that you all have in front of you. It should be a blank piece of paper with a body on it. Is anyone missing in that? Great. So what you can do is scan your body. You can close your eyes and scan your body from head to toe. Just think about your own body. Use your green writing utensil. Color the parts of the body that you like and love. And then, the not so lovable parts, please color red. I'll give you about a minute.
Mix it up. It's red and green, right? Whatever that is.
All right. So did anybody, show of hands, color their entire body green? You did? Yeah. Yay! That is awesome. And very rare. So I celebrate that. Most of us didn't, and that doesn't surprise me either. My body would have some red on it as well. And this is my favorite quote. Because if we truly talked to our friends like we talk to our body, we'd have no friends. Body image is something, like Tanya was talking about, that permeates. Our kids hear us talking about our bodies, our friends, our nieces, our sons. And I have an awesome article I did not write about how to talk to our daughter, it can be our sons as well, about our body, and I don't want to hear my own voice. So who is willing to read this out loud? Awesome. Do you actually mind coming up here? No, not at all. Sorry, it's a teacher in me, but also I have a family member who has an eating disorder. I feel very strongly about how you talk around your kids.
I'm gonna plug that in my mind too. So the article is called Hope Avenue, or it was written by Hope Ave.
Yeah, I found it online.
Okay, I'm assuming Ave is not her last name. But okay, how to talk to your daughter about her body. Step 1, don't talk to your daughter about her body, except to teach her how it works. Don't say anything if she's lost weight. Don't say anything if she's gained weight. If you think your daughter's body looks amazing, don't say that. Here are some things you can say instead. You look so healthy is a great one. Or how about, you're looking so strong. I can see how happy you are. You're glowing. Better yet, compliment her on something that has nothing to do with her body. Don't comment on other women's bodies either. Nope, not a single comment, not a nice one or a mean one. Teach her about kindness towards others, but also kindness towards yourself. Don't you dare talk about how much you hate your body in front of your daughter. Or talk about your new diet. In fact, don't go on a diet in front of your daughter. Buy healthy food, cook healthy meals, but don't say, I'm not eating carbs right now. Your daughter should never think that carbs are evil, because shame over what you eat only leads to shame about yourself. Encourage your daughter to run, because it makes her feel less stressed. Encourage your daughter to climb mountains, because there is nowhere better to explore your spirituality than the peak of your universe. Encourage your daughter to surf or rock climb or mountain bike, because it scares her, and that's a good thing sometimes. Help your daughter love soccer or rowing or hockey, because sports make her a better leader and a more confident woman. Explain that no matter how old you get, you'll never stop needing good teamwork. Never make her play a sport that she isn't absolutely in love with. Prove to your daughter that women don't need men to move their furniture. Teach your daughter how to cook kale. Teach your daughter how to bake chocolate cake made with 6 sticks of butter. Pass on your own mom's recipe for Christmas morning coffee cake. Pass on your love of being outside. Maybe you and your daughter both have thick thighs or wide rib cages. It's easy to hate these non-size zero body parts. Non-size zero body parts. Don't. Tell your daughter that with her legs, she can run a marathon if she wants to. And her rib cage is nothing but a carrying case for strong lungs. She can scream and she can sing and she can lift up the world if she wants. Remind your daughter that the best thing she can do with her body is to use it to mobilize her beautiful soul.
Very well read.
Yeah. I'm like, did you plan that? That had to be planned.
I did not. Does anyone have any comments on that?
It was amazing.
Amen.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I do work in an eating disorder clinic, and I wish that I could impart that on all of the parents that come through the program, even years prior to even entering the program. But we do what we can. Are there any brave souls who are willing to say, like, here was the thought that I had while I was coloring the red parts of my body? Yeah?
I will share. My parts mostly focus on what changed in my body after having kids, which is something that I was thrilled about as it was happening, and I kept telling myself, oh, it's not a big deal, I'm going to have another one, and then it would happen, I'm going to have another one. And I realized that it's things that have happened because of this beautiful, joyous event that I was blessed to be able to do, but they're things that were beyond my control. And so I think, for me, a lot of it is the control of not being able to switch this part of my body anymore.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Yeah.
Right when you said that, I said, we were joking back here, I was like, I should just put the green crayon down, because, and yet, that's how I felt. I was alarmed, like, oh my God, I think I'm going to be putting on the red.
Sure. Did you have any green?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, to comment on what she said, I'm pregnant right now for the first time. So my red zones are usually, like my tummy and my thighs, but right now they're my green zones. So I'm excited, but I fear that they will be my red zones bigger than they were before after having a baby.
Yeah. That brings up a really good point, that it morphs, right? One day I might have a red spot, the next day that's totally green, for whatever the reason may be. But glad that you're celebrating. Yeah.
I just wanted to piggyback on the after babies feelings in our body. I saw this beautiful gallery of photos about the 4th trimester body. Have you seen those? And I just thought that was really beautiful that they were celebrating the changes in their bodies after having kids.
It was on Fast Company, I think, recently. You can find it online. Thank you so much for sharing. And my goal for being here is basically to help have you all be a little bit more aware of the negative talk, of the things that we think about ourselves, think about our potential after the next 15 minutes. Because it's amazing how influential our thoughts are. So you all, my guesses, have seen the basis of cognitive therapy. That's the type of therapy that I do. Essentially, an event happens or some sort of situation occurs and a thought is associated with said event. So we give it meaning. Something happens, we give it meaning, and then there's a feeling that comes after it. But what happens is our thoughts happen so fast, rapid fire, that we go from event to feeling like that. Oftentimes we don't even stop and say, what in the world was that thought that caused this feeling? You know, it's just so immediate and we become experts at it that the thought is lost. And we have thousands of thoughts. My guess is, as you guys were walking up the stairs to come into this room, you had at least 6 thoughts. Who's going to be here? Oh, I saw an awesome shirt that I was walking by. What's the weather? You know, there's so many thoughts, and oftentimes the thoughts are neutral. They're just like, it's a thought. And we don't pay attention to it. Sometimes thoughts work for us. Ooh, I'm looking good today. Sometimes they work against us. Those are the thoughts we want to become more aware of, the ones that work against us. So if you were walking up the stairs thinking like, the woman behind me totally can see my thong. They're looking at how much junk I have in my trunk. Like, who knows what the thought was, but it's a negative thought working against you. And the feeling that is associated with that thought is not a helpful feeling. So that's the awareness piece. We need to bring those thoughts to your forefront of your mind. Does that make sense? Great. So here's the negative thought example. Y'all have been driving, and while driving, has anyone felt mad, anxious, tense? Great. So I actually use this example. It has nothing to do with body image because, you know, maybe that's not why you're here today. Maybe your thoughts and your negative thoughts are affecting your career and your potential in that regard. So this example has to do with a little bit of road rage. So we're driving, and all of a sudden we're just like tense, don't know why. Because we had some of these thoughts. The other guy on the road is either going too fast, too slow, or has just a bumper sticker that you think is obnoxious. And all of a sudden you have all these thoughts about this person. The thing is you're also having thoughts like, oh my gosh, did I pack Sally's lunch? And, you know, am I wearing the right shirt? Just thousands of thoughts are happening at the same time. So they get kind of lost in the mess. So all of a sudden you're just feeling tense and angry. But if you stop and say, what in the world is going on for me? You uncover these thoughts like, what a jerk, this other driver. But if we revise the thought, slow down a little bit, we can go from our mad, anxious, tense feeling, oh, this is funny, to a more neutral, less tense, less anxious feeling. And that is by replacing those negative thoughts with, what's the worst thing that can happen if I'm a little late to this meeting? Or, really, how often do I get in a wreck? And then this is my favorite one that I say to my husband on the regular to try to fight his road rage. I'm like, you know what, that's okay, we just got cut off by that guy. He's on his way to the hospital, his wife's, you know, in labor. And it totally works for me. I become more neutral and he becomes escalated. On the regular. But the point is, if you slow down, you can actually control what's going on for you. It's really your vantage point. What kind of glasses are you using in that moment? All right, so this is a little bit of therapy talk. I'm not going to go through this, but I want you guys to take a look at some of the cognitive distortions that we talk with clients about. Do you do any of these? My guess is there's some that you do more than others. My favorite are the should statements. When I'm a little too hard on myself, like I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that. Or number 5, which I think is what we all do. We give people a lot of credit. Like they can read my mind. They know exactly what I'm thinking right now. Or I can read their mind, and I know what they're thinking about me, which is really, I'm a pretty powerful person if I can do that. And I do it a lot in the elevator. Right? Like I'm like sitting there and I'm like, they can tell my earrings don't match my shoes. And it's like, they don't care. But I put that on them. And I then feel crappy because I'm like, why did I think that they had they don't care about me. They're worried about their own earrings. So now I consciously try to tell myself when I walk in an elevator, they think you look great. It's amazing. I mean, they could think I look horrible, but I'm telling myself because I do have control over that piece. And it's mind-blowing and really world-changing when you walk out of the elevator and you feel that much better about yourself because you told yourself. So, putting it out there to you all, which ones do you guys do? 5? Jumping to conclusions? Is there a particular place where you do it? Like,
oh, it's constant. It's a constant circus. I mean, I have to like scream at myself to stop. Just like shut up, stop. It's just constant. It's a constant at work, wherever.
Yeah.
It's like just stop.
And thought stopping is the technique we use, where you almost start talking back to yourself.
Yeah.
You say, stop it.
Yeah.
You are doing this to yourself, just stop.
It's like that hasn't happened. That's not going to happen. That it's just the story you made up, and then pretty soon I'm just like so angry. It's like. This has not even happened. It's not going to happen. What do you know, like in the car, it's the same thing. It's like, stop. You know, the madness. That woman, I don't know if you guys remember that woman. She was a diet woman. She had short blonde hair. And she's like, stop the madness.
Oh, yeah.
You know, stop the madness.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm a huge catastrophizer.
Are you?
Yeah. Like, particularly in the middle of the night. If ever I'm awake in the middle of the night, it's like an anxiety festival in my head. Like, I'm certain that my husband's going to be the one who's going to be in his bus on his way to work when the Bay Bridge decides to collapse. Okay. And I have it all worked out, and I play out that full movie of like what it looks like, what I would wear to his funeral. And then he wakes up in the morning, and I'm like, he's like, what's going on? I'm so glad you're here. But that's, you know.
Going to the disaster preparedness list, probably not the best idea.
And yet the list is on the refrigerator and I keep it going.
I threw mine away.
I probably will when I get home.
With the like constant stream of like negative self-stuff they have going, I probably got the nasty bird on your shoulder. Just says stuff here. Like, you suck, how stupid are you, why did you ever do that?
Mm-hmm.
So on, so forth.
So the radio's playing in your head of negative talk. So you have the mental filter going on where there's no positive coming in.
Maybe.
Right? It's like a coffee filter where you have the ground and it's just like just the negatives loud coming through. No positive. Anyone else? Thank you so much. If you do know where you are on this list, you know, now you're like, great, Lauren, now I know all the negative thoughts. Now what? Thanks. Awareness is the first step. So being able to look at this and say, man, I am really hard on myself. Or when I do lose the pounds and I'm finally 139, I actually don't give myself the praise that I have told myself for the party. Instead, I'm now, you know, setting the goal even lower. So where am I? What am I doing there? You're, you know, obviously number 4, not even celebrating the positive that you've had. So awareness is step number 1. And then what? Then we challenge old patterns. These patterns have been there for most of us since we were listening to our parents when we were our kiddos' age. This is a really, really hard task I'm asking you guys to do. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It takes months and months and months of awareness, thought logs, and just really working at it, practice. But what you can do is start asking, like, is this helpful? Is this even accurate? Like you were saying, like, 9 out of 10 times we make it up in our own head. So ask yourself. And then, is this, something that I'm saying, like, always, never, every day? What's evidence for and evidence against? So at the eating disorder clinic, I have the kids pretend like they're in their own debate. Like, you have to set this up where you got to convince yourself that this is absolutely going to happen. Is there any evidence that one time you were successful? And try to just challenge yourself. Once you have said, okay, that's a negative thought, are there more realistic or more neutral ways of working yourself through that? So you're going to develop more hopeful and helping coping strategies. And what are those coping responses? They're more balanced. So let's say I set myself up to do something, I didn't do it. Rather than saying, I'm such a failure, the more balanced way of saying is, you know what, I didn't do so hot this time, and I didn't hit my goal, but that's all right. Because A, I learned what my obstacles were, but B, 5 more minutes. Sorry to keep that. A, I learned what my obstacles were, but B, now I know that, I can try a second time and it's going to be A-okay. So I'm asking you guys to be a lot more kind to yourself. So here's an example. Y'all can read it yourself. But you set yourself up to run 3 miles, you only ran 1. Let's go to the feeling, which is disappointment, sad, and frustrated. Well, why? Why did you feel that? And you uncover the thought, I should have been able to do it longer. I'm a failure. The more realistic and neutral way, and kind way, and compassionate way to talk to ourselves is, actually, I shouldn't necessarily be able to do this out of the gate. It's a new skill. It's going to take some practice. Ideally, the new feeling is that you're resolved, you're determined, more motivated. Does this make sense to anyone? Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add that if you're particularly good about being hard on yourself, a better way to do it, or a better way to frame it, is to pretend like you're telling your friend. Like, this is what your friend said, they came to you and expressed this, and this is your response to them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, for a long time, it was like, yeah, I don't believe myself, so that didn't work.
Yeah. I have a great segue, actually.
I was just going to say quickly, I'm sorry. I have a huge circle of people whose positive opinions about me do not count.
Yeah.
My mother, my husband, my sister, probably Tina. Like, if you say something that's positive to me, you have to like me because you're like close to me. So you have to like me, and I don't have to listen to the nice things that you say.
But okay, so the technique we use that might resonate for you is, what would your best friend say? And that's what we tell the kids that we work with on the regular. Okay, so what would your best friend say to you? If you say this, what would your best friend say? And let's compare those 2 statements. Maybe we would have you say, what would a stranger say to you? So healing thoughts. This is really where we do need to love ourselves, love our friends, our kids, whoever hears us, with some compassion. You got to make an effort and keep returning back to that goal. It's okay if you slip up. Like a grandmother's love for her only child. Be gentle with yourself. Be more aware of what you're telling yourself. So my conclusions are, you absolutely can influence the way that you feel and your health. You just have to take the time to stop and bring those thoughts to the surface and say, what am I telling myself? Where did this come from? Is this from my dad, from my mom, and not even from what I truly believe? But you can change your thoughts. It takes time. I'm more than willing to connect with anyone. I've thought logs, challenge you for the next week to track them, write them down. It can be enlightening to see what's going on in that radio of yours. But yeah, practice. And like I said, I think you'll be able to shift have a little bit more compassion and kindness for yourself. Any questions?
I had a question getting back to the children.
Yeah.
I'm definitely grown up and suffered from anxiety, and I'm trying very hard not to project that onto my kids. How do I talk to them and protect them from hurting themselves without giving them the catastrophic thinking? You know, and saying that, you know, get down from there, that's, you know, you could fall down, you could, you know, and I don't say you could fall down and smash your skull, you know, you know, that you could get hurt, you know, get down and get hurt, but I mean, what, do you have any opinions on that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think safety first. So if your child's about to get hurt, don't even worry about stopping and thinking like, oh my gosh, what am I imposing on them? Take care of their safety. But you do have to check yourself, because there are going to be moments, I bet, where they might get a bump or a bruise and be okay and learn, whereas you would maybe jump and have a little bit of an anxiety-provoking saving moment. And so I think you'd have to kind of write down your spectrum, like what is I don't care what's going to happen. I'm going to say what I need to say to get my child safe.
Yeah.
Versus where can there be a little bit more wiggle room for me to work through my own anxiety so that they don't get that piece.
Yeah.
So I'd want to see kind of the spectrum of where you're reacting, so that we can do a little bit of like chaining. Say, okay, where can we break the chain there?
Yeah, I heard my son tell my daughter, you know, don't do that because you can do this, this, and this, you know, and I could hear myself, and I thought, oh, I don't want him thinking that way, you know, thinking ahead in that way, that something bad could happen, you know.
The underlying piece that I'm sure they're also hearing is mom wants us safe, mom loves us. So again, don't beat yourself up too much, since they know that you love them and want them without bruises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, maybe you could phrase it like, make sure you're using your blank skill when you're up there. You know, then you're it's not a negative, it's more of a positive, and you're giving them the tool. Like if they're climbing up on a wall, you can say, make sure you're able to balance. If you don't feel like you're able to balance, then, you know, I don't want to say then get down, but you know, you're giving them a positive suggestion of reminding them of that tool, that skill that they are working on to help them accomplish that task. But then you're also putting it on them. Make sure you're able to, and then if they don't feel comfortable in that situation, then they can make the choice to get down or not.
Yeah, that's like all.
Actually, that's just what I'm like, whoa, hey,
Better, but yeah.